my my big struggle is probably like on the fitness side. I think I'm going in the right direction with the business side. I wish I was just getting everywhere faster. And I think that's the biggest thing that I struggle with is comparing yourself, and I think everyone does this, comparing yourself to other people instead of looking at your personal progression. So if I had to change one thing, I would say like it's just hard to not see these people because you only see their results, right? You see like the guy with the six pack and you're like, man, I want that. I'm like, but they've worked so hard at that. You don't see all of the sacrifice and progress that they put in. So I would say that's one thing that I want to continue improving on myself is it's something that I'm aware of is like just comparing your own progress to yourself. It's always looking back of where you've come from, where you're going, and how much you've personally developed. It's only a battle against yourself. You're not competing against these other people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Carrier's Best You Podcast. I'm super fired up today to have the one and only Mike Swigunski with me today. Mike is the founder and the #1 best-selling author at Global Career, and I just finished his book called Global Career, How to Work Anywhere and Travel Forever, and it's an absolutely awesome book, super unique, and what I really love about it is he gives you practical tips on how to actually travel and how to work remotely. He gives you everything from like travel insurance to tips on what visa to get to travel tips to packing tips and everything like that. So it's super cool and super practical. He calls himself a remote working expert and location independent entrepreneur, which is super cool. And Mike today is joining us from Tisibili. Did I say that right? Tisibili, Georgia. Not the state. There's obviously no city called Tisibili in Georgia here in the States. So out in Eastern Europe slash Western Asia, and it's 10 p.m. there tonight. So I appreciate him joining us here on this this Wednesday evening. But anyway, so to introduce you, Mike, a little bit further, you first had your international flight at age 18. Then you did a study abroad in Italy when you were back at the University of Missouri. And that's when you kind of first got the itch of traveling. And then you applied to be the student manager of a study abroad program in Czech Republic and in Prague. And so you did that, and that was awesome. And then you graduated and you moved to Australia. And you moved there with $3,000 in your bank account, and you didn't know what job you were going to get before you moved, which is awesome in and of itself. And you've been traveling for a decade plus ever since. But the way I want to kind of start today, Mike, is to ask you, is there a biggest thing that you feel like you've learned about yourself over the last 10 plus years? Because I feel like traveling can be a really big self-discovery process. So is there anything that you've most learned about yourself over the last 10 plus years?
There wasn't any like core uncoverings. I would say I kind of already had a really good grasp of about who I was, but travel for me just really solidified those thoughts that maybe I had a little bit of doubt. Maybe there was, there's always that thing in the back of your mind where, okay, you can't actually do this. But once you're able to achieve stuff like traveling on your own, one of the things that I did that really kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone, at this point I'd been traveling for probably 4 or 5 years, was I hitchhiked around the whole South Island of New Zealand. And I just went in with the goal where I'm going to make a whole lap around New Zealand by hitchhiking. And this was something that was absolutely fun. I connected with so many great people. I was able to really put myself out of my comfort zone. And I think it really taught me a lot about myself, that I can just achieve anything. And I can take those travel experiences and relate it to my business, that right now I don't think anything's impossible. I know I can do and achieve anything that I put myself and I put in the effort.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so, and kind of on the same topic, you've been to so many different places and you've been able to interact with so many different people from so many different cultures. What is like one of the most important things that you have to do in order to connect with anybody? Like connect with anybody, any culture. That's something that is, relatively universal.
Yeah, I would say body language is the real universal language. And I've been able to get around the world, I don't know 40 different languages. I speak a few other languages pretty poorly, to be honest. But I could still know enough to get by. But body language, having a smile, having like a cool and calm composure when you meet somebody is going to be such a great thing for any scenario, no matter what culture. Most cultures are going to have very similar body language. And it's one of those things that before you even say a word, people are kind of getting a read about your vibe. So I would say having a good understanding of what vibes you're giving off and being able to read those on other people is going to be essential. And I don't know how you can get better at that. I have some friends and family that just really struggle with reading body language, and I don't know how you actually develop it, but I guarantee travel will absolutely help you with that.
Yeah, well, I feel like you get better at it by maybe first off the awareness of it, and then just like going around and meeting so many different people, because then you can start to identify the different things that the different people have in regards to their body language, and then it takes a lot of like intentionality and awareness behind it though.
Yeah, and I think if you're going down that path for self development, there's probably some books and some core like body language signals that you can read. And I think if you do struggle with that, being aware of it and just trying to improve on yourself will definitely help you in the long game. We've got this virtual kind of environment we're living in, and with remote working, it's essential because now we're chatting so much. Like there were so many times in the past when I've had Slack messages or emails, and you can't really tell the tone so much. There's no emojis in a lot of emails, and sometimes you can be like, okay, is this person upset? You can't really get a vibe off of them, and sometimes it can be as easy as hopping on a video call to make sure that everything's all right, because we can't necessarily meet up in person. So there's probably a lot of funny scenarios happening right now. And one of the things which I'm sure everyone listening in has experienced is the whole mask stuff. With a mask, there's been so many scenarios. Me and my girlfriend, like, I'll say something jokingly, but because she can't see my face or my smile, she's like, doesn't know if it's serious or if I'm joking. And she just like, there's so many scenarios where people are misreading the body language just by having a mask on your face. So I think being aware of that and kind of knowing what to say or what to do in those situations for remote working is going to be something that a lot of people have to learn and develop over time.
Yeah, no doubt. I have similar experiences. I coach fitness classes and have to wear a mask during it, and I know I have to make sure if I'm like joking with somebody like in a fitness class that I like make it very very known, because if not, then they think I'm being mean or something, or like making fun of them. So I definitely have similar experiences there. Well, you mentioned pre-podcast about you have a girlfriend now for the last 4 years. Just mentioned it again. What was it like when you maybe like first started dating when you were abroad, and like what was that struggle or challenge like?
Yeah, so I'd been kind of like on the dating scene. Like I've had a few long-term girlfriends and relationships, and even the short-term relationships, I was just the type of person that's like, if it's for a couple weeks or few months or years, I want to make a strong relationship, and I just want to build solid relationships, no, regardless of the situation, whether it's romantically, professionally. And I think just going in with that mindset, where being transparent, being upfront about what you're looking for or not looking for, you got to do it in a delicate way. But I think that's been part of my success with building good relationships. And I think the networking side, the professional side, and the romantic side kind of go hand in hand. Like you need to be authentic upfront and kind of just clear about what you're looking for. But the dating scene overseas has been one of those things where, I don't know, it's always been something that's very interesting, learning about other cultures. And I'm just always fascinated to talk with people and kind of hear their story, because everyone has an interesting story. You just kind of have to dig it out of them, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Where did you meet your is your current girlfriend's name Alejandra?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
She's
Where
mentioned
did
in the
you?
book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where did you meet her?
So before I moved out to Tbilisi, Georgia, I was based in Medellin, Colombia, and we actually met there. I had traveled there for a month. We ended up meeting up at a coffee shop, and it was kind of one of those things. It was like we'd planned to have like an hour-long date, but we ended up spending the whole day together. We had like lunch and dinner, and like it was just one of those things where she had actually just traveled to Missouri, and
No
I have
way.
she has family there, and I was like, I'd never met anybody who'd really even been to Missouri from another country. And I don't know, we just had all this stuff. She was really into traveling. She had lived overseas in Switzerland and stuff, so she kind of had an international mindset, and we just really clicked. And we've been kind of dating, and she also has her own business with helping podcasters. So
Wow.
it's been a great fit where we're both able to work from a laptop and kind of explore the world together.
That's awesome. Super cool. Super cool. Well, to kind of go back a little bit into your story, because I'm fascinated about your time in South Korea. So after you spent about 6 months or so, if I remember correctly, in Australia, you joined an MBA program in South Korea because you had a kind of a mentor who recommended that you apply for it, or maybe start doing it. So just talk a little bit about your time in South Korea, because I feel like up to that point you had spent some time in Europe, you spent some time in Australia, and so I don't know if this is just ignorant, but I feel like those cultures are maybe a little bit more similar to the United States than say South Korea is. So talk about like the kind of the early on challenges of going to South Korea and getting your MBA there.
Yeah, so I was at this time I was working in Australia, and I loved the job. I loved living in Sydney. I was living in, Bondi Beach, like one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Uh, but at this time, I had talked to my mentor who suggested I apply for this MBA program. They had a really great scholarship, and I ended up getting approved for a full ride, and they were going to even pay for my flight to go move to South Korea, study there. They're going to help me find work as well. So it was just one of these opportunities that, even though I loved my current lifestyle, I was like, this is just too good to pass up. And so I hopped on a plane after traveling around Australia for 2 months, hopped on a plane, moved to South Korea. And yeah, you're right. It probably was like the biggest culture shock for me at this time, because I hadn't traveled around too much in Southeast Asia or lived there for that long. And I was studying in a fairly small town, not small, but it's still like 2 or 3 million people, but small for South Korea, called Gwangju. And I absolutely loved it. It was a international MBA program. So I was one of two Americans, but there was mostly South Koreans, and they just treated me like family. They're some of the most friendly people there, and really kind of treated me like a younger brother. So I really enjoyed doing that. So I studied my MBA for a few years with a marketing emphasis, and it just kind of reconfirmed that, I love studying marketing. I love working in marketing, and that's kind of been my core component for building a business, and kind of building my book. Is you have to market yourself, right?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So you've worked for, I think you've had maybe like 7 different jobs, and you've worked with teams, worked with a lot of people, but a lot of people with kind of different cultural backgrounds, maybe a little bit of a language barrier, things of that nature. And one of the biggest, most important things in terms of building a good team is a certain level of trust. We've talked about body language and how that can be a certain way to connect with people at a better level early on. But when people who are on a team with you have a cultural barrier or a language barrier, what role does that play in regards to helping build trust as a team?
Yeah, I think especially now with remote working, you have to try to find like the common grounds with, people in other cultures, and try to find things that you can relate to. And I think it's really good, at least for my own personal team, to try to find stuff that's, not always work related. It's good to just have a call about like, hey, how are things going? If you're wanting to develop your team, build a company with a solid culture, I think it's good to just have those like, you know, remote virtual coffees, virtual happy hours, where you're just talking about stuff that's not necessarily work related. Maybe 90% of it is non-work related topics. So I think having that type of thing where you can find out more about what drives this person, what's really like motivates them, because not every culture is going to be motivated by money. A lot of times they are, but a lot of times there's other factors. Maybe it's just they want to spend more time with their family. They have other different motivation stuff. Maybe they're going for the praise. And if you're able to figure this out, how your employees are motivated, or how people in other cultures you're working with are motivated, and if you can align that motivation to your company's goals, if you can align their personal and professional goals with your company, it's going to be a win-win for both teams, and it's going to really help build your company in a stronger way, in a stronger remote culture. And this will work in any culture around the world for sure.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You mentioned earlier how um, Georgia has kind of the culture of Europe and the living expenses, I think, of Asia. So, and I this is why I thought about this question. I hadn't thought about it before. If you had to tie in, like, you tied in like cultural and you tied in living expenses. If you had to tie in like your ideal living place, what would the different qualities of maybe some different countries or different cultures would you tie in to say, like, I would like the culture from this country, I would like the living expenses from this country, I would like the food from this country, that sort of thing?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question, man. That's tough. I
Yeah.
really like that. I would say I think Tbilisi, Georgia is a really good example of that because they do have like the European kind of vibe where work-life balance is a little bit more relaxed. I think that kind of resonates with me a little bit more. I think, we're put on this earth to really enjoy life. And, as long as you're doing something that you enjoy, it's going to be great. And I think Europeans kind of find that balance a little bit better. As far as the food's delicious. They've got kind of every culture here. So as far as like things that I'm missing, I would say if we could get the weather of Medellin, Colombia, and bring it over
Mm,
here, where it's like 75 degrees year round, that's something that I would love to import. But
yeah.
yeah, honestly, I think Tbilisi, Georgia checks every box that we're looking for. There's a few other things I would say bringing the service culture from the United States
Mm,
or from Asia. They kind of have the European service culture. So when you go to a restaurant, they're friendly, but they're going to come to you on your time, kind of thing. Like, in the U.S., there a lot of people are working for tips, where a lot of times in Europe and Asia they don't have the tipping culture. So their incentives aren't as in line to give you the top-notch service that most people are accustomed to in the United States. So I would say that's probably one thing that I would love to import as well, is that kind of U.S. culture, or where that U.S. service, or from Southeast Asia where the service culture is also really good.
hmm Is there any any part of you that thinks you might move back to the United States at any point?
Man, I have no desire. I honestly, I love the United States. There's so many places that I want to visit and travel, but I go back every year, usually around this time for holidays, and the trips are getting a little bit shorter and shorter each year, or they're getting more expanded to like, okay, we're going to spend 1 week seeing friends and family, and then 1 week like going out and seeing something cool in the United States, like going to a national park. But as far as long term, I don't see it, man. I think I'm able to build such a better life overseas for a fraction of the cost by utilizing geo arbitrage, that to replicate this same sort of lifestyle in any, major 10, 15 cities in the US, it probably costs like 10 or 15 times more than what I'm spending here. So I'm able to have a better lifestyle and save more money. And I don't know, it's just more enjoyable in my opinion. But I know this lifestyle is not for everyone. So uh, you gotta test it out though, for sure.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. So, getting down to the last couple questions here, I think that in order to get closer to the best version of yourself, one of the most important things to do initially is to try to gain clarity onto what you think the best version of yourself looks like, what you think the best version of yourself is capable of. And then my goal every single day is to try to reverse engineer that person into reality. And so, a question that I kind of discovered for myself about a year and a half ago has been something that I found really helpful, and it's what I'm getting ready to ask you. And it's, is there a particular skill or piece of knowledge that the best version of yourself has that you don't currently have?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and I'm sure there is a lot of skills for that. I would say for me, my big struggle is probably like on the fitness side. I think I'm going in the right direction with the business side. I wish I was just getting everywhere faster, and I think that's the biggest thing that I struggle with is comparing yourself. And I think everyone does this, comparing yourself to other people instead of looking at your personal progression. So if I had
Mm-hmm.
to change one thing, I would say like it's just hard to not see these people because you only see their results, right? You see like the guy with the six pack, and you're like, man, I want that. I'm like, but they've worked so hard at that. You don't see all of the sacrifice and progress that they've put in. So I would say that's one thing that I want to continue improving on myself it's something that I'm aware of, is like just comparing your own progress to yourself. It's always looking back of where you've come from, where you're going, and how much you've personally developed. It's only a battle against yourself. You're not competing against these other people. But I usually use these people as inspiration. And I think that's one of the things, if you're listening in, finding somebody that's 2 or 3 years ahead of you and asking them for help, whether that's through paid coaching, mentorship, is one of the best hacks to get ahead and get ahead fastly. I have 2 or 3 coaches. I've played sports my whole life, and I wouldn't be the person that I am today without these coaches for sports and for, personal development, professional development, and with my own business. So I think a lot of people are hesitated. You have to find somebody that's, they can't be 20 years ahead of you, or else that's just too far of a gap, I think. Find somebody who's maybe 2 or 3 years ahead and can help you out the way, help you with, getting to those goals that you want to achieve. But yeah, that's a really interesting question.
Awesome. Well, yeah, man. Well, before I ask the last one, I want to acknowledge you for being able to really take that leap of faith back when, kind of after your mom had passed, to say that I'm gonna go without a job and be able to figure this thing out and be able to have that proof of concept early on is super cool and super unique, obviously. And for you to be able to just continue this journey for the last decade plus has been, I know I was super inspired reading your book because I didn't think that it was as attainable or as realistic as you make it seem, and you bridge that gap for people. So it's just really cool and really special, man.
I appreciate that. And I think 2020 has been one heck of a year, and it's thrown so many curveballs, but I really hope it's kind of almost a wake up call for people, and to really prioritize your life. And I know it's easier said than done, but if you really want to travel, you can make it happen. Like the monetary stuff, that's an excuse. Like moving to one of the most expensive countries with 3 grand, being able to find work, you can make it happen. You just have to really push yourself, and just have the confidence to know that it's going to work out. And worst case scenario, you'll end up back where you started, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I
Awesome.
always had in the back of my mind. I was like, well, I can always go back and work in the United States somehow if things do fail, but I really never wanted to do that. So I think it was kind of a good incentivator for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I've heard people say similar things to that in the past. Is I thought about what would be the worst case, like if I fail at this, or worst case scenario, what would happen, and then you kind of identify what the worst case scenario is, and it's like, oh, it's actually not all that bad. Like if I had to go back, then it's not all that bad. So I maybe just take this leap of faith that gives you the confidence to do so. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know everybody is going to want to make sure they go get your book and go follow you if they don't know and follow you already. So go get his book, Global Career: How to Work Anywhere and Travel Forever. I'll have it linked up in the show notes, and then you can go get it on Amazon. It's an Amazon bestseller. And then you can go to his website as well at globalcareerbook.com. He's on Instagram at swigmeetsworld, on LinkedIn at Mike Swigunski. Anywhere else that people should go follow you on? You're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, Mike Swigunski on YouTube, and then globalcareerbook.com. And hey, if you're listening in, don't hesitate to reach out. I love connecting with people. I actually do respond to all my emails and messages. And if you do need help, I do offer a free consultation in my book to people who've bought that. So I love connecting with people and helping you kind of, reach those next goals that you're looking for. And 2021 is going to be that year where I hope a lot of people are able to shift towards something that they really want to attain in life. And Nick, thank you so much, man, for having me on. This was an absolute pleasure chatting with you, buddy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and everybody, like, he gives such practical advice in this book, and I didn't really touch it on the practical advice here because I thought we could have a little bit of a different conversation. But he has so much practical advice into here, like travel insurance, how to get visas, things to plan, like what you should pack in your bag, and so if you're somebody who wants to travel and wants to work remotely, like this is the book for you. And like he said, he has in the back of the book, once you read it, he gives you the ability to have a free consultation with him. You have to follow the steps in the back of the book. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But so go get the book. But last question here, Mike, is I think that getting closer to the best version of yourself is a constant journey, and then I also think it's a unique journey. I think the way that I get closer to the best version of myself is going to be a little bit different than the way that you get closer to the best version of yourself. So for you personally, if there are 3 things that you can currently do or 3 things that you can currently work on to get closer to that best version of Mike Swigunski that you can possibly be, what are those 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, when my fitness stuff, my fitness game is on, when I'm eating healthy, and when I'm staying on path with my business, all 3 of those like core pillars have to align. So what we've done is we have a personal chef here in Tbilisi. It's actually a very affordable option here. So eating healthy, it gives me the right energy to want to work out, to want to work hard. And it kind of all falls in line. Because I'm eating healthy, I'm going to work out. And because I'm working out, I want to eat healthy. So I think all of these things really need to align. And I'm sure you're a big proponent of, or a big person to take a note out of that is when your fitness goals are in line, your business goals are going to fall in line as well. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me with the lockdown. I actually had a knee surgery early this year, so I couldn't walk for 2 months. So that really kind of pushed me back, where getting to the best version of myself, all 3 of these things have to align: fitness, eating healthy, and staying focused at work, and kind of having this overarching goal of what I want to achieve in life. So I think for me, it's I'm going on the right path for sure, but that finish line always seems to keep, once I cross it, there's a new one that appears.
Yeah. No doubt, no doubt. It's always, like I said, it's a constant journey. So that finish line just continues to go further and away. Hopefully, it gets closer and closer in sight as we move forward in life. But anyways, Mike, that was 3 great things. Awesome time, man. I appreciate you, and that's all we got.